All right. Welcome to episode 4 of the Hansem Reports podcast. Today we're going over Kingdom Hearts 358 over 2 days, a game that came out originally on the DS and actually surprisingly hasn't been remade, at least for this series. That's pretty surprising, but has
It's
they have made
unfortunate.
what were you going to say, Bernie?
It's unfortunate.
Yeah, and it is unfortunate. I wish it did, but we'll get into that in a second. Um, but they have made HD movies on it, on the 1.5 and 2.5 remixes. And without further ado, I'm crazy, and today I have with me Bernie. Bernie, what's up?
Hello.
How you doing, Bernie? You
I'm
excited?
good. How are you?
I'm doing well,
As
sir.
uh, as always.
Very good. Now, important question.
hmm
As every single review starts, give me your 30-second rundown, 120 characters or less.
Organization 13 slice of life anime.
He actually did it. He did it, boys. No, 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 Shion. No.
Who?
Oh, oh. Ah. No Roxas. No, no Axel. Just slice of life.
Slice of life. That's what it is.
It
You
actually.
can't tell me. No one can tell me otherwise. That is the best summary for
Jokes
this
aside,
game.
though, it actually is like a really good
Yeah.
summary of it because it's just straight up like what the day to day life of being an organization member is.
Yeah.
Like all the good and bad from it, pretty much.
And everything in between.
Yeah.
Because there were some like you know how in sitcoms in between two important scenes, you'll just have someone like walking through a hallway and seeing someone else, like, I don't know, watering the plant with a coffee pot. And you're
Yeah.
like, that's fucking weird. And then you just keep going. It has a lot of moments like that.
Yeah. It's like, did this need to be there? No, but it's just literally everything they did.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
So I guess we'll
But
we'll
that's
get
garbage.
into the story then. So this story, there's it's it's one of those where not a lot happens, right? And we already know, like it's like the first one that actually it's the first prequel, right? Of the entire
Yeah.
series. So we already know essentially how it ends because we already know of Roxas, but we just get a bunch of background into him. So there's not really much that happens, kind of, right? Like it's it's just more of showing you more detail into what you already know about him because you get a lot of his backstory in Cage too.
Yeah, the only thing that really happens that we don't know about is everything regarding Xion.
Yeah, exactly. And then it kind of becomes inconsequential. Well, she does come back like later, but it's not
Much,
really
much,
like
much later.
yeah, but it's not really anything that has a direct effect immediately at least.
It was a cool way to like introduce a new character and like a new arc
Mhm.
without having to be like, oh, she was always there. You just no one, like with Ventus Aqua and Terra, like, oh, Mickey just remembered now after like 10 plus years.
Yeah, it's definitely much more natural than that. Like the
Yeah.
whole Mickey thing just makes Mickey look like a big jerk. Like
Mhm. And I like how it also plays off of the theme of memories from
Mhm.
Chain of Memories.
Right.
And it also kind of sets up its own theme about how, because a big part of Roxas and all of the nobodies really are them finding their own self apart from just being someone's nobody. And
Right.
Gion had it rough with that because she wasn't anyone's nobody. She was just a doll who was supposed to sap memories from Roxas, but even she's ended up developing a sense of self.
Right. Yeah, they definitely do play into that a lot. Like it really they take seriously, I guess, like the idea of being a nobody and like what that actually means.
hmm hmm That was one of the best parts of this game. The fact that we saw how they all quote unquote felt, because nobodies don't feel, but you know what I mean. We
Right.
saw basically how they all reacted to that sense of uh we don't feel anything. Like Zigbar didn't give a fuck. But Vexen took it as like holy shit, I should study this, you
Right.
know?
Like that's
And
always like we always go back to it. That's to me the interesting thing about nobodies is that because they say they don't have feelings or anything like that, but then they have so many tendencies where they do. Like it's
it's kind of like the real life question, like what determines yourself? Is it your brain? Is it your heart? Is it your memory? Like what makes a personality? You know what I
right.
mean?
Yeah, and I think that's also one of the interesting things is that they have the memories of their past life basically. Like when they did feel. So then like with that it's like they know how to feel, right? So does that mean they still can? Like I like that question that they basically pose. But then at least like they do solidify with Roxas because you start from like from day one, right? When he's
Hmm.
born and the guy has absolutely no personality. Like that is like the closest thing to just nothing, right? Like even more than like somebody like Lexeus, which with him it's just like he just doesn't say anything. But at least in this one, he says like the most he's ever said, and it's still like a few
It's
lines,
probably
maybe. Like,
if I'm not wrong, his lines are Syax told me to help you. We're going home. That's the beginning and end of that mission.
right.
But with Roxas, it's really cool seeing Roxas as a complete and total blank slate, especially when he has to tag along with Axel. And
Mhm.
Axel's basically he's giving us the tutorial, but he's also showing Roxas like, hey, this is what it means to this is what we do, basically. And the entire time, Roxas is basically Solid Snake, just answering all of Axel's statements, just throwing them back as questions.
right.
Like like the first time that he points at a chest, he's like, "Oh yeah, open these chests up. Sometimes they have stuff in them, like potions." And Roxas just looks at him and goes, "Chest, potions."
Like,
But he
yes,
legitimately had,
Roxas. Yes.
yeah, like he had no idea what the hell anything was.
yeah. For a guy who was just born, he did pick up stuff pretty fast.
Yeah, that was one thing that people note in the organization. They point out very quickly, like, you know, the only thing that you look like you know what you're doing is with that keyblade.
Mhm.
Aside from that, you're kind of an idiot. I think Lexine said something like that once.
Probably. It seems like she would.
It's in character. It's in
Yeah.
character. Speaking of though, that was another cool thing, seeing how the organization interacted with each other.
Right. Yeah, you get like more of like the I guess like the nitty gritty of just like how everybody is, right? Like
Hmm.
and it's kind of like how you would expect, but it's just nice to see at least, like right, like with somebody like Syax. Syax is like the secretary, right? Like he's he's the day to day manager. Where like I guess like it kind of reminds me of remember in The Office, right? With Michael Scott and Jim were co-managers, and it was like, oh, I'm more the big picture guy, and then Jim's more the day to day guy. Like that's kind of like what it was with Zemnis and Syax. It seems like so,
Basically, yeah.
except not as much of like the power dilemma that Michael Scott has with that, but that's a whole nother thing.
Speaking of power dynamic, it was also very cool to see how everyone, whether or not they followed him out of like fear or obligation, everyone did respect Zemnis.
Right.
Because no one ever just straight up called him Zemnis.
Mhm.
They either called him the superior or number one.
Right.
Never anything else.
Yeah. Like that. There's that kind of like a bit. There's a bit of that fear, right? Of like, okay, like that's the boss. Like that's the guy that we're working for. We like if we see him, we know something's up. Pretty much.
Exactly.
So it's like even though like
It's
Sykes kind of sucks to deal with, it's like I'd rather deal with him than like have Zemnis show up and start looking over my shoulder.
yeah. It kind of reminds me of like how they did it in Avatar with Fire Lord Ozai,
Mhm.
which I before we even saw his face, it I remember it took a while before we even learned his name was Ozai.
Right.
We just knew him as the Fire Lord.
Right.
And it does kind of the same thing in this case where it just sets up like, oh, he is the man, the boss. Like
Mhm.
you don't go to him. He'll go to you maybe, but you don't
You
you
don't
do
set up an
whatever he
appointment
says.
with him.
Yeah, like you don't need to bother. I think Syax at one point even says that because I remember Roxas at some point asks like, "Hey, how come we never see the superior?" And Syax is like, "You don't need to bother him." Just worry about the missions I give you.
But it reminds me, wasn't it Roxas too that like asked like Axel, and he's like, wait, why do we follow his orders? And Axel's like, uh, that's a good question. Like,
Yep. Yep. But it's little things like that that's just cool to see, like how like how they thought of each other, because you could tell like even in the organization they had their own cliques, you know,
yeah,
like Roxas, Axel, and Gion were their own. Like they were the Seesaw trio. You knew about the trader group with Marluxia and Larxene specifically, and even there you saw like, oh, Larxene really doesn't talk down to Marluxia, and Marluxia actually talks to Larxene and kind of ignores everyone else. And then
right.
you have Demix, who's just like,
Just
man, I'm
minding
just
of some
hanging out here.
business. Yeah, he's just
Exactly.
chilling.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, one thing too that this game does pretty well is like the the way, and it's I guess it's I'm trying to think of the other games. So it's the first one that does this because I know 0.2 kind of does this, but it's the first one that happens while another game's happening, right? So they I think they do a really good job in this game of tying everything together, right? Where since this thing literally starts during KH1, like towards the end, right? Like when uh
Mm-hmm.
Sora stabs himself in the heart, right? And
I
then
guess when
you'll
he's
see,
Sudoku himself.
yeah, he's seppuku, and you'll see events playing out like little references where it's like it's not the main point of the story or anything, but it's like, hey, we're recognizing that that's something that happened, and like in some cases they just need to, right? Like Castle Oblivion, like so for the first like 20 something days or something like that, you have all the Castle Oblivion members there, and then they all leave, right?
Mm-hmm.
And another thing too is like they use that to their advantage. I think where the big one is since Axel is like basically I guess like the guy who's showing Roxas the ropes, then and becomes his friend. Then they take advantage of that and say, oh well, Axel is gone at this time, so then now Roxas has to like find out how to do shit on his own, right? And that like pushes him into actually like taking action.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's kind of like, as funny as it is to say, it's kind of like when you take a kid away from his parents,
Yeah,
like on their first day of school.
he didn't need two adults,
Because
but you know, it's just
he just needed Axel. But
hashtag
and other
Roxas is better than Ventus.
yeah, other organization members. Hashtag Roxas is better than Ventus. I just typed that. But it's funny how like other organization members like poke fun at him about that too. Like I think Demix or Luxord uh, at one point were like, you don't always have to be following Axel around like a lost puppy. And even Syax at one point was like, you're perfectly capable of doing these missions on your own. You don't need someone else to hold your hand.
What I feel like too, like, because a lot of it is like you're just like a lot of the game you're reading the text, right? Like I feel like for some of
Yeah.
those, like you could just imagine Syax like just just his tone, and then him just like
Mhm.
crunching the numbers and me like, I'm sorry, we don't have the money for this.
It's
You
it's
need
not
to
in the
go on
budget.
your own. Like it's not in the budget.
No, that is a great thing about the fact that for the most part you know these characters, so you know like how they're gonna say things, and even if you don't, through the dialogue, which is I don't think there's ever a single. No, there's a few like actually voiced over cutscenes,
Yeah, yeah.
but it's like five
Majority
ten
of it
percent of
is
the dialogue. Yeah,
yeah.
but even with just the dialogue, you can tell like, this guy's kind of a bitch,
Yeah.
and this guy's kind of a dick, and this guy's a hard at. You know what I mean? Like you can tell that. And then there's Lexius who doesn't say anything. So
He's that guy.
yeah,
He's what helps us get to 13 members.
he's what helps us get to 13 members.
We
Exactly.
we only had like reasonably we wanted 12, but Zemnis wanted 13, so shit like
He wanted 13. Why? That's not important to the plot yet. We
uh,
got 5 games to go until we get to that.
so speaking of
Uh,
13, well let's talk about number 14, right? Um,
Officially number I.
number I, so clever. So
Uh,
so that's
there's
pretty much like
there's
the
a reason
biggest
for
like unique thing that happens in this game, right? Is Shion.
that.
I would say like that's
Yep.
like the big thing that this game stands on.
Yeah, Gion, and by extension, the relationship that she made with Axel and Roxas.
Right. In a lot of ways too. I
And
think like they do a good job with like the overall like the I guess like the tragedy of those three friends, right? Because they're the only ones that don't like they have the whole like memory battle between each other, right? And like I think seeing this just really reinforces like when you watch scenes of like Axel and Cage 2 and like you see like he's really feeling alone when like Roxas isn't like remembering him and stuff. Like it I feel like it just gives you a better perspective of that.
yeah, it's mainly because like when we see Axel in Kingdom Hearts 2, we know that he feels betrayed because the game tells us
Right.
that he was betrayed. But in this case, we actually see that relationship build up from
Right.
the from ground zero.
Yeah, that's
That's
one of
not the
those
right term.
show don't tell things, right? Where like when you
Yeah,
actually see it, it's gonna be it's gonna have a bigger impact on you than if you're just like, oh yeah, he was betrayed, right? Then you're like, oh okay, I guess I'll accept that, right? Like it's not it's not the same as when you're like taking it from their perspective, and then you're like, oh shit, I now feel betrayed. Like,
especially too like when you see how Axel changes around Roxas, because that's another thing that Sayak specifically points out, how
mm,
Axel's like completely different from he was when he was before.
mm,
Um, because at first he was basically Roxas's babysitter, and he'd complain about it like from time to time in the beginning. But then later, there'd be times where he'd be like, "Hey Roxas, let's go get some ice cream. I just finished with my mission." And the first time, Roxas was like, "But I didn't finish it with you. So what's it matter? Come on, let's go anyway." You know?
I just realized too, like, and I'm surprised I never thought about this, but like this is out of all the like the three main trios in Cage, right? This is
Hmm.
the only one where we see them becoming friends, right? Because like in the other
Yeah.
two cases, they've already like it's established from the beginning of their games, like oh they're already friends, and then like they already kind of they just have to show you the dynamic between them. Whereas with this, it's like they're all meeting for the first time, and I think that's really interesting, right? Because then
Hmm.
it's more natural when they go through like some hiccups, like when they add Shion, right? And then it's like okay, well, like you see like little moments where like Axel feels maybe a little jealous or something, um, and like so on and so forth. But it I feel like it's something that's really relatable, right?
Yeah, again, it's the show don't tell, because like with Sora and Riku in the first game, it's like, oh, Riku's always won. Sora
Mhm.
has never won against Riku, and that's kind of where the rivalry is from. But in this case, it's like, oh, why do they always have Cecil ice cream together? Well, because Axel was just like, hey, Roxas, let's go get ice cream. It's just something I do. You might as well come along. And then that became their whole shtick. Like that
Mhm.
became their whole tradition. And even when the first time that Roxas went on a mission with Gion, and he was kind of put in Axel's shoes, and they finished the mission. Um, he was like, I feel like I should just go home. Oh wait, didn't Axel do something? Hey Gion, you want to get ice cream? Why? It's just something I do.
Yep. And they're like, "Oh, ice cream.
Yeah,
This is not bad. Why don't the other organization members do this? They suck."
and, and it's really funny too. Like you know that one line at, at the end of the game. You
Yep.
know the one I'm talking about.
Oh yeah.
It sounds really stupid when you just play it as, who am I gonna eat ice cream with?
Right.
But when you think about it, that's all he ever really knew. That's all
Yeah.
any of them ever knew in terms uh of I want to say affection,
Mhm.
friendship. You
Yeah,
know what I
I would
mean?
say that. Yeah. I think too like it's one of those things I feel like they definitely ground what like being a friend is, right? Like in the sense of it's not as like dramatic as like oh well like I need my friends to like save the world or something like that, right? It's like it's just the consequences of just okay well like I just want my friends in order to just do the simple things and be happy, right? Like in this
Hmm.
case, it's eating ice cream, right? Where it's just like, okay, well, like those are the little moments that you cherish, right? That you're like, oh, okay, like I enjoyed having that, right? Like spending those good times and just chilling and just enjoying life, basically.
Yeah, yeah, that is they do a great job of putting a lot of meaning behind that.
Yeah. We're gonna
No,
talk about
what
this. It
you
makes me
said,
want to actually like play the game more. Like,
it's really fun.
yeah.
Like,
Like the only thing that like always keeps me from it is, and we'll get into it for like gameplay, but it's just like some of the filler that happens in between is like,
mm,
but like the actual story and stuff, like it has a lot of heart in it, and I think that's what
I see what you did there.
ah, it's like it's one of those things where it's a prequel that you can look back at and be like, okay, I can see why they made this, right? It's not one of those things where it's just like, oh well, we're just gonna start adding a bunch of random stuff and just
We're gonna start making stuff up.
yeah, like we'll get to that thing next week, but like it's just um yeah, it feels like it adds value to the overall story.
You know what? I was thinking about it. This and Chain of Memories are the only side games that don't have extra enemies.
What do you mean by extra enemies?
They only have Heartless and Unversed. I'm Unversed. Heartless and Nobodies. Because Birth by Sleep
Ah,
adds
okay.
Unversed.
Yes. Yes.
Dream Drop has the Dream Eaters, and Coded has the bugs.
Yeah. And it's mostly because like those they happen in eras where like if they say heartless or nobodies, it kind of breaks everything, right?
Yeah.
Although they could have just kept. I mean, for what was it? Coded like coded could have just. Oh no, actually, well they could have just kept heartless, but they have like those weird bugs. But I don't know.
Yeah.
It's mostly then I
It's.
think with the unversed with like that one they just had to come up with something because if not then it's like both like nobody's can't exist without heartless and then heartless didn't exist at that time.
Mhm. But that's more a side note than anything. That's just something I just realized right now.
Yeah, yeah. And then also too, like just a little thing that they did in this game that was really interesting to me was the with Heartless, right? Like the concept of the pure Heartless and the artificial Heartless. How like they're
Hmm.
just like, oh no, we're like on a specific mission to get like the hearts, right? Like it's
Hmm.
it's like we're our eye is on the prize, and then you're just like, oh okay, well that's cool. Like it kind of reminds me of like in Star Wars when you see like in the prequels at times they'll kind of show glimpses of uh getting like the plans to the Death Star, right? Like, oh, like this is like the end game goal, right? And like you had already seen like the original trilogy, but then you go back and then you're like, okay, like this is they had this plan all along, and like that's what I feel like with this uh with that like with Xemnas's plan of getting to
Of
Kingdom
getting the
Hearts.
heart.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember Zigbar specifically. Whenever you went on a mission with him, he'd always be like, "Yeah, I can kill the pure heartless, no problem, but you got to make sure to kill artificial heartless because
Mhm.
you're the only one who can unlock their hearts, and that's what we need."
Right.
Really quick, going back a little bit, them going for ice cream after every mission kind of makes you feel uh like at a normal work life
True.
after work. In Me anyway, I'd always be really fucking tired, so I wouldn't want to do shit. But if one of my coworkers would be like, "Hey, you want to go just have some food?" Yeah, sure. And that'd be like our way of bonding, like
Yeah.
of making some kind of friendship. It's not like, oh, let's go to a movie, or oh, let's just go out drinking, because it's a weekday. We gotta come to work the next day.
Mhm.
Um, but just something as simple as that, like it just gives that much more meaning to the simple little things.
Yeah. Exactly. That those are the things that I feel like this game really tries to focus in on, and it does a good job, I think. Of that.
You made a really good point with how it's not always like, oh, I need my friends to save the world.
Exactly. Yeah, because like obviously like the other games, like I think like with if you just compare like KH1 and like Birth by Sleep with their those set of friends, right? Like it's all about like, oh well, Birth by Sleep, we need to like save Ventus or whatever, right? And or with like same thing with Terra, right? Like because if not, then like all this crazy stuff's gonna happen, and then Xehanort's gonna just like unleash his plan, right? Like, but in this case, it's not really. There's not any of those stakes really at play. It's just more of
Just
like
one
no,
drop.
we want to keep the team together, right?
Yeah. It that is an We're gonna touch on that next week too. The fucking the cat and mouse and cat game
Oh my
of
god,
the Wayfinder trio.
yeah, it's
But
yeah. That last thing with that, at least it's so funny trying to like follow it. Like when you look at like the timeline of that game of just like
mhm,
what happens at what time. It's too much.
like we'll just leave it at it's hilarious how Terra's story is basically at 9 o'clock, Ven's is at 9:05, and
Yeah,
Aqua's
like they
at
just
like
all happen to miss each
10:23.
other.
Yeah,
They all
but
reconvene at Viridian Garden, and then they never see each other again. But they're all like, "Oh well, we just saw him 2 seconds ago. If you go that way, you'll catch up to him real fast."
that is really interesting though. What you said, how that game is basically about them following each other, and this one's about them trying to stay together.
Yeah, exactly.
Because that is one of the like the biggest points of the story, how they make that relationship and how they just want it to stay.
Mhm.
Like even like as shit starts going down in the later part of the story, that's one thing that they all say, either when they're monologuing or talking to each other. They keep saying like, I just want to have ice cream like we used to.
Right. Like that's all it boils down to. And I
Yeah.
guess one other thing like the game is I guess like it focuses on like one of the other subplots that then comes in at the end is with Riku and Mickey, right? So
Mm,
with them, I always did love how they included that, and they give you like I guess like the full on like uh fight that they had that Riku and Roxas has
mhm.
and I don't know like to me like I really enjoy it because like Riku's one of my favorite characters and he at least here you get a bit more it's just more added value right like as I was saying before just of his journey right of because like this is really when you start seeing like okay like he's struggling between um like choosing between light and dark essentially right and then he does let it take over him but it's still something that he doesn't want to have like define him right
Mhm. Yeah, that's true. He only did it because, well, he had to in
Mhm.
order to wake Sora up.
Right like it was a last ditch effort like it was just like okay well like I tried doing it this way and like I need to bring Sora back so this is my only option.
I have to say though, doing that boss fight, he didn't have to. Like actually having played that boss fight, he didn't have to do shit. Oh Lord. But uh
So I guess that's a good place to then segue with gameplay overall.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
this game, like I had said earlier, there's a lot of filler, and like most of the filler is just in the actual gameplay, right? And it's it's the thing that like always deters me from like going like to it and actually playing it. Um, but it because the thing is like a lot of the like they do a lot of things right. Like I'll start with the positive, where one thing I think that they do a really good job with is the actual combat, right? Where because it's the first or it's yeah it's the first game on the DS, but it's like their second attempt at a I guess like a handheld experience, and they really advanced like what they were doing. Like they got it like decently or a lot closer to what you're doing on the PS2, right? Like in terms of like how fast the combo's going and like how fluid everything feels. Like it feels a lot more natural, right? Whereas like with obviously with the Game Boy Advance, they could only do so much.
Mhm. No, it's true. Like this and the rest of the other two of the portable games, their combat felt really, really, really close to Kingdom Hearts 2.
Hmm.
It's very much what you said. Like the feeling is there. It's just slightly different. I don't want to say fall short because again, there's limits to the technology that we got.
Yeah. I would say that
Um,
this one, ironically enough, is probably the closest one to like if you compare to say like KH2, like
that yeah,
where
that
where the speed of the combo is still there and there's not like that floaty feeling, right? Where like Birth by Sleep and Days, you can feel there like that one's. Those are the ones where I'm like, there's something different. You're like, there's
wait, in days or in
a
oh
Dream
the
Drop.
oh
Uh,
dream drop. Okay, yeah.
yeah, sorry, Dream Drop and like Birth by Sleep. Those are definitely the ones where it's like there's like you're in like if you do air combos, you're suspended in the air like way longer than you should, and like it feels janky in comparison, right? Whereas like with this one, it's like obviously it's not the same, but it's really close. I think.
Hmm. Yeah, another thing too is the fact that its combat system is basically the same as a main Kingdom Hearts game, aside from the panel system.
Right.
But what I mean is like you don't have the command deck yet, and the command deck made things pretty different. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Along with the were they called form changes in Birth by Sleep, or were they called something else? I think they were called form changes.
The man, yeah, they were called something. I know what you're
Yeah,
talking
but you
about.
know what I'm talking about. Like that also like those two things made it drastically different from what we were used to. But this one didn't have either of those. It was
Right.
just basic like here's your attack, here's how you get like more combos, and if you want magic, here's magic.
Yeah. Like
So you
it's
can just
it's the
kind of
one
do that
that
if
that
you're.
definitely stays the most consistent with the main games, and I think
Mm-hmm.
it definitely benefits from that. It's just to me like a matter of like them being able to provide you with enough variety, right? Because like a lot of because of it's set up in like a mission system, then a lot of it is like okay, well this time we're taking out 10 heartless, now we're gonna take out 20, now we're gonna take out 30, or like we'll have like essentially the same heartless but in a different map, and like all
Mm-hmm.
every time it'll be more annoying. So it'll be like I remember there was one in like Wonderland where you had to like chase it across a maze, and
Oh my god.
then yeah, and then like the extreme version is the what's his name, the something of the sky, the one in Neverland where you have to just like chase that guy around
Yes.
like it's
Yes.
it's like things like that where it's just like in general, you know how I feel about like having to just chase enemies when that's like the biggest problem of a boss fight or like the hardest thing about it. But
Mm.
it's besides that, the actual combat, like when you get like straight up fights and stuff, you're like, okay, this is actually a pretty enjoyable experience.
Yeah, some of the boss fights were pretty cool too. Like I know one heartless boss you could fight is the I always forget the name. The one that shows up in Wonderland. Something Trickster.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. It's Trickster.
Yeah, yeah. The fact that you could fight him was really fun,
Oh,
mainly because you
Trickmaster. But same
Trickmaster.
thing.
Yes, yes, Trickmaster. But yeah, when you get to like an actual fight like that, that's when combat's like really fun. But you are right though, like the missions where it's like, oh, go clear like 10 heartless. Now go do it again, but in
Yeah,
Agrabah. Like that can get repetitive. But
yeah.
I think part of the reason for that is mainly because this kind of I don't want to say borrows or is influenced by, but to me anyway, it really reminds me of the way that Monster Hunter works,
Hmm.
where you have a mission board, you pick which mission you want to go to, and then you complete it, you come back, and you just keep doing that.
Hmm.
And yeah, to progress the game, you don't have to do every mission, but there are some pretty useful rewards you can get from doing those optional missions.
Right.
Like, I know in this game, you could unlock better panels for the
Hmm.
panel system, which the panel system was actually I liked it, but I cannot say that it was amazing. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
It was different in a good way, but I can definitely see how it kind of. Well, first we should probably explain what the panel system is, right?
Yeah.
Um, the way it was is basically instead of leveling up like normal in a Kingdom Hearts game, where you'd get an AP point and you'd assign it to what skill you want, and you'd have to basically balance out how many points you had and what skills you wanted. In this case, you had a grid. I already forget how big it was, but you got a grid and you had different like what were they called? Well, they were called panels, but how would I describe them? I guess tiles. Would that be a good way to describe them?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you had different tiles and you slotted them in that grid to assign them as skills. And some of them were actual skills like high jump, dodge roll, glide, but others were like combo ups, combo finishers, combo plus, more health, more strength, etc., etc. And you unlocked more of those by completing the different optional missions. Another one was the weapon gears, which gave you better weapons. In Roxas's case, each gear translated to a different type of keyblade. And that was also pretty cool. How without anything, Roxas always had the Kingdom Key. You could find something like one gear and it turns it into three wishes. You
Mhm.
could find another one and it turns it into oblivion, and so on and so forth. So that was always something really cool.
Yeah,
Um,
it has a good amount of like customization to it. Like
yeah,
it lends itself to actually making you want to keep like playing and like
and
exploring.
unlocking better. Yeah,
Right.
but again, like if you, it's not perfect. Like if you don't want to take the time to learn how to make it, like how to build it as efficiently as possible, you're not gonna want to deal with it, you know.
Hmm.
But still, I think an interesting change of pace.
Yeah. Like I think that that's the way to do it. Like it's just like little tweaks like that to where it's like okay, it's gonna be a little bit different, but um, like they're genuinely like interesting things to do to the game, right? Where you're like, okay, like this is still Cage, but it's like give me a different experience in a good way. Is it better?
Yeah.
That's for like that's just an opinion, but like it's not like it's like detrimental to the game or something like that.
Oh yeah, it was definitely not a detriment, in my opinion, anyway.
Yeah,
Um,
and like I guess like in general with like I guess I'll just ask you for your experience because you have way more experience with this game than I do. But then like with the actual controls, like how did you feel with that? Like just because it's kind of like we said, we're trying. It's something where they're trying to make it similar to KH2, but obviously like it's not on a PS2 controller or anything like that. So and it has like an extra screen, so that definitely affects things. Like, how did you feel when you were playing it?
um, it felt a little limited,
Hmm.
and it definitely didn't feel as fluid as the other games, like as the main games. And my biggest complaint was the camera. Like that was the thing that I don't want to say turned me off, but that was my biggest problem.
How did you control the camera?
Like
Now that I'm thinking about it, because it only has left and right, like bumpers, just and that was probably for like locking on and stuff. How did it was just an
the
automatic camera, or
it was, but you could also hit right to recenter the camera. So that's kind of how you had to turn the camera.
gotcha?
And then with lock on too. That was another way that you could move the camera, but you know, um, it's no replacement for having an actual right analog stick.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah.
Another thing too is the fact that for me it was kind of harder to use magic in a combo. You know, like
Hmm.
that's one of the glories of the shortcut menu. But you don't really have that great of a shortcut menu when you only have the one left bumper or
Right.
left button. Um, it's just little like quality of life things like that were really the biggest issues with me. But in terms of like actual combat, I think it was as good as it could have been on the DS.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I think they did the best that they could with what they had.
Hmm. It's kind of like, how should I put this? Say like if you go to Subway and you
This would be
get like,
interesting.
yeah, and you get like, I don't know, uh chicken teriyaki with provolone, lettuce, tomatoes, and onions.
Oh, that sounds
And
good.
then you go somewhere else, I don't know, way sub, and we're not sponsored by Subway, by the way.
Or
Uh,
Waysub, whatever that is.
like I had to, I don't want to shit on anywhere else. So you go to Wait Sub and you get the same thing, but then you find out like, oh, there's no tomato in here. Well, we don't have tomatoes. Why not? I don't fucking know. For the sake of this example, they
Right,
don't have
right.
tomatoes. It's still not bad, but like, what are you gonna do if they don't got tomatoes?
Yeah, it's like I would have liked one, but
Yeah, you get what I'm
I
saying?
see your point. It's like the really great thing you wanted, but just like the discount version, kind of. And I mean
Exactly.
that's what it is when you get the handheld version of a console game,
Hmm.
essentially.
Another thing too, I didn't have a problem with this, but I know it's a problem for other people. It is definitely more grindy than
Yes.
the main games,
Yep. At
and
least it
you
definitely
don't.
feels more like that because
Well,
everything's so repetitive.
there's the reason for that is because your main sense of progression is the panel system by finding and unlocking more panels.
Yeah.
It's not like when you level up, your stats don't go up. It's
Yep.
just, oh, you have more space in the panel system now.
Yeah. I
So
think.
it just became this thing like if you wanted to get stronger, you had to do as many optional and challenge missions as you could, which the feel of having to go back to the mission board, do the mission, back to main base, mission board, mission, main base, that it gets repetitive
Yeah.
and it can tire someone out pretty quick.
Yeah, and I think that like that's those are like subtle things of why like something like say like a KH2 you can play it a lot more, like even with less like in the sense of how you're saying uh that limits you to just do things to just like just get the panels right where it's like oh well,
Mm,
like I have to level up to do that whereas like with something like say KH1 or 2 especially 2 where you can still get abilities from just beating like continuing the story. Like you can technically just be like level 1 essentially, right? Or like even just a under leveled in general and you'll still feel like you're getting things, right? Cuz like oh, I beat this boss and then now I got explosion and then now I got aerial finish or whatever, right? And you still feel like you're getting stronger in a sense or at least you're just diversifying your attacks, right? Whereas like with this, it's like no, like you have to level up in order to get that feeling.
that's I think that's one of the reasons why I think we may not see a port of this game onto a console. I don't want to say that
Report.
definitively, but like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. No,
Like,
I think it's long gone by now. Like they would have done it, I think, by now because they did one for Dream Drop. Like I thought it would have come out like around that time when they did the 2.8 stuff, but
mm,
I guess it's just too much effort for them to make
no, I
enough
think
money off of it. Like
I think what it is the is mainly the fact of how the missions are set up. Because, like we said, it gets very grindy and very repetitive, and it could get boring.
mhm, yeah,
But when you think of it, that doesn't work for a console game because when you're on a console, you sit down and you play it. Like you play it for a couple hours straight. But with a portable game, they're meant to like you're meant to play it and go. You
yeah.
know.
Like past
So
the
like
time, kind of just like oh, I'm just like in the car for 10 minutes or something playing this game.
exactly. So in that case, it works like this setup works better for that because one mission won't take you that long, and then you just close the game, go do I don't know, go to your dentist appointment or whatever, and you come out and it's like, oh, I gotta wait for the bus. All right, I'll just play another mission.
Why not just play it while you're getting your teeth checked,
Yeah, why not? Right? Just
and then
make
you
sure not to
distract your
drop it on your
dentist,
face.
and then you're
Yeah,
dentist's like, yo, what you playing? Yo, shouldn't you be looking at my teeth? Oh, there goes your tooth. Sorry, man.
exactly. Like that one episode of Drake and Josh where he sneezed,
Yeah.
drilled a hole through his tongue. But you get what I mean.
Yeah.
Like that's one of the reasons that that Monster Hunter is wildly popular as a portable game. That's one of the reasons why Peace Walker has that same setup. Metal Gear Solid Peace Walker has that same setup. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
of the nature of its like playing in bits and pieces.
Yeah. It lends itself to the hardware it's on, basically, like to that
Yeah, yeah,
audience, which is, I mean, it's a smart thing to do.
yeah. Because you're never gonna have like a Kingdom Hearts length cutscene
Yeah, because
on.
it's true though, because like at least like you don't want to have like a scenario where, say, like on the DS, where you're playing like, I don't know, like something like, say, like a Dark Souls or something like that, where like it happens to me all the time, where even if I played it the day before, I go back and I'm like, what did I, like, where, what was I doing, where am I, like,
Yeah,
what, like what's the next thing to do? Whereas like with this, it's just like, oh, like I look, okay, I completed missions 1 through 10, now I'm going to 11, cool, like.
yeah. That's. I think that may be one reason why I like this kind of system when it comes to like progressing through the story because I'm the kind of guy that like whenever I get into an open world game, I want to find like I want to explore. I want to find everything that I could possibly find. But
Mm,
because I do that, I'll get lost pretty easily in the story.
yeah.
Because you know how games will be like, oh, I can go one of three ways, but for the sake of the story, you can only go straight. All right, cool. Hey, you unlock more places to go to. All right, let me backtrack.
Yeah.
Where was I supposed to go after this?
Yeah,
But with
then
this,
you're
like you said,
exploring to try to just continue the story at that point.
yeah, and but like you said, like with this, you know, like oh, I did missions from 1 to 10, so well, naturally I gotta go to 11,
Mm,
and then you won't get lost like that. But it runs the risk of becoming tedious.
yeah.
It's a balancing act.
Yeah. But overall, I think they did actually. I think they did a pretty good job with this game. Like, it's one of those where it's not. It's definitely not like the best game or anything like that that they've made. But I think it's one of those solid uh games that they made. Right. Like, it's not the worst and it's not the best. It's like somewhere in the middle.
I think, in the sense of fun, it is one of their most fun games,
Hmm.
mainly because of that multiplayer. The first Kingdom Hearts to have a multiplayer, and I need to get you a DS so we can play it.
That would be fun. I always do
Mm.
like the gag weapons that they have in the multiplayer. Like, was it Demix had a broom or something like that?
Demix
Or
had a broom. Fucking Zemnis had a pair of fans. Roxas with his struggle bat.
yeah.
Um. Oh, that was another thing. I love how in the multiplayer
What did
you could play
Zigbar
as.
have?
Oh, Zigbar had. I forget. He had something funny, no doubt. Maybe he had a
Yeah.
water gun. That sounds like something he'd have. But
Continue with what you're saying.
I love the fact that you could actually play as someone who isn't Sora or Riku. And not just that, you got to play as any of the organization members.
Right. Yeah.
That was one of the coolest things about this game.
I think that this game does a good job of basically having, what's it called? Like, it remembers that it's a video game, right? Like,
Yep.
oh, like it, some in some other cases you might be like, oh, well, like, is this gonna break the lore or something like that? It's like, nah, who cares? Just like, this is
Yeah, like
this is to have
what
fun.
uh what's a good one? Like let's say in Halo, oh, why would you ever want to play as a hunter? Why would a hunter be playing be fighting against the Covenant? Who gives a shit?
Right.
It's a game. If I wanted realism, I wouldn't be playing a game.
Right. Oh, I'm looking it up, and Zigbar had a he had hair dryers, like the
Yes,
blow
I
dryer.
remember the hair dryers now.
Oh no, and it was Zaldin who has brooms. He has like five
what
brooms. What does
what
Demix
did
have? Demix, oh,
Demix have?
Demix has like a tennis rack, like or
Ah,
the
yes, it was the tennis rack.
yeah. Oh no, what's his name? Roxas had and Shion had umbrellas. Maxine
How did he get
has
this? I remember he had a struggle bat.
Maxine has what, a
I had
dragonfly. Marluxia has a ladle. Luxord has just like CDs. What's his name? Axel has
Jaguar
pizza.
in their
Um,
truest form.
of course, Sax has a banana. Zexian has a sandwich. Lexeus has a gavel, and then Vexen has just the lid of a trash can. That's That's pretty incredible.
That's trash.
Because he's trash. Even they
Or
know.
he tells everyone else they're trash. I don't know.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, that was really cool. Like just how multiplayer wasn't just like, oh, you're everyone's gonna play as Roxas or you play as Roxas or Xion. No, you pick whoever the fuck you want to pick.
Yeah.
They even had Riku and Sora, Donald, and Goofy, and I think Mickey too.
Yeah,
But
those are
still,
the little things that would be nice to do. It'd be fun to like just even in some kind of like I don't know, just I guess like if they did some kind of it's kind of like the arena mode or whatever in the Mirage Arena in DBS,
yes, the Mirage Arena.
but like you just get to like be Goofy and just I don't know use all his abilities, just start spinning around with Goofy Tornado or something. Like that would be fun if they did that more
Uh,
often, basically. But
that's what I'm saying. Like if they ever put it to console, I, even if they just put in the multiplayer aspect of it, I would love that.
mhm. Yeah, same.
One day, maybe. I feel like this is gonna become like the Pokemon Diamond and Pearl for me of Kingdom Hearts. I want that remake, but it's never gonna happen. Oh Lord. But no, yeah. Because of that, like, that's why I think that this is one of their most fun games.
Yeah.
Because there are a lot of games that I've played them once and I've never really felt like going back to playing them again. Biggest offender is Dream Drop, but like,
What are you talking about?
uh,
That's a great. Can't even do it. I'm sorry. Just,
but like even beyond that, like Chain of Memories, I played it. I liked it for the story, but I never really felt like going back to playing it.
sure.
Um, Kingdom Hearts 2, I really love. It's just overall fun time, so that's why I'll go back and play that.
Mm.
Um, even Birth by Sleep, it's like I like I want to keep playing to like unlock all of the form changes, but beyond that, like I never really feel the need to like, hey, let's start all over again. You
Mhm.
know?
Yeah, no, I feel that. Well, I think. Do you have anything else you want to say about the game? I think we pretty much covered it all.
Yeah, it's a pretty short one. Oh, we've been talking about Birth by Sleep a lot, but we didn't even mention that this game is actually the first time that we see. Well, technically, Kingdom Hearts 2 is the first time that we see one of the trio with Terra, but this is the first time that we see their face in a game with Ventus.
What are you
And
talking
I'm
about?
not
It's
being.
Roxas.
You shut the fuck up. I remember this specifically because it made me think that Ventus was a badass.
Mm.
Because Xion was walking around Wonderland with Zigbar. And at one point, Zigbar was like, holy shit, that's a face I never thought I'd see again. And the camera pans over to Xion, and it's fucking Ventus.
Mm-hmm.
And then he just knocks the fuck out of Zigbar.
Yep.
And that made me think he was a badass, and boy, was I wrong.
He's two adults.
He's just a little baby boy. Oh, before we forget, arguably the best part of the entire game,
Oh
the
god.
most important character,
Oh man.
the Moogle
This
of the
guy.
Black.
Yo man, that's the black market Moogle is pretty dope. Like that's.
That's one of those things that like I didn't know I needed it until I had it.
Yep.
You know, that was just so great. Seeing a Moogle in an organization coat.
I love to like
Oh,
that. Like, isn't there like they ask questions about it? Like, why is that there? And it's just like, yeah, don't worry about it. Like,
yeah, I think at one point he says like, "Shh, no one can know I'm here. That's why I'm wearing the coat.
yeah.
They'll revoke my Moogle license or something like that."
Like he's like, man, I got a family to feed. I gotta, I gotta sell to whoever's buying, man. Uh,
Exactly.
well, I think that'll do it then. It's a good place to end it.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, I'm the MVP of the whole thing.
yeah. Um, but yeah, that was 358 over 2 days. So then I guess now we'll just do some plugs. Basically, if you're watching here on Twitch, thank you for watching, and this video will be uploaded onto YouTube in the next couple of days. You can also follow us on Twitter at the Hansem Reports. Twitch and YouTube are both the same, the Hansem Reports, all with spaces. You can also check me out on Twitch at Crazy Kazi. I do a lot of speedrunning of KH2. So normally I'm on the weekdays doing practice and then doing a run on the weekends, like on Friday night or so. But yeah. Bernie, you got anything?
Mm, who will they eat ice cream with?
That's a wrap. see, see you guys next week when we talk about Birth by Sleep.
That'll be fun.
Yeah. See ya.
Bye.